people will attribute the process of finding out what it means to be an American as somewhat of a hopeless cause. Their reasoning being the rich diversity we have among our nations. The issue with their sentiment, however, is the fact that wherever we came from, whatever we do, we are all working towards similar goals. The unity of human nature along with the mindset needed for achieving success is what unites us all. We are part of a country that means hope, a country that symbolizes the backbone of society by showing us what it is like when the whole world gets together in one nation to celebrate the idea of building a better future. America has its overwhelming share of issues important to its people. However, the fight has yet to be forgotten. No one is addressing these problems with the motive of letting them be. Giving up is not what we're made of. This attitude is without a doubt based upon our respect to our nation. Taking a moment to look at the word respect. We think of respecting our elders, teachers, parents. What we don't always address is the respect we all have towards our country. Our country that represents a common good and a common goal. No fight has been fought without others in mind. Respect for the hardships of others is a constant theme in American history. When I look back, four strong historic figures come to mind that exemplify such dignity. George Washington is probably the most iconic name in American history. He began this country off as our first president on a great note of pride, hope, and the foundation of fighting for what one believes in. As America fought for independence in the Revolutionary War, there was practically no light to be seen at the end of the tunnel. A newly established group of colonists decided to try their luck against the most powerful army in the whole entire world, Britain. America had no experience, no formal training, and not even proper uniforms. Whoever was will and able fought. George Washington took on this army as its general, even though they showed little promise. He encouraged them, trained them, inspired them, and led them to an ultimate victory. Our off respect towards his nation, respect towards the will to be free from Britain, he took on this challenge. He could have very easily let the reality of the situation get the better of him, but he realized that he owed it to the colonists to earn them their independence. He honored their dignity and took on a failing army. His faith in America's future reflects the immense respect he held toward the country. Ulysses S. Grant is remembered as an iconic figure in American history as well. He served a presidency and commanded the Union Army in their overwhelming success over the Confederates in the Civil War. He was a Republican, and in that time, that meant a supporter of Abraham Lincoln and the abolition movement, otherwise known as the movement to end slavery. Grant had always had a strong moral compass growing up. He always greatly opposed behavior that involved profanity or bad language, and he definitely upheld that standard on the battlefield. He was soft-spoken, but made up for his calm demeanor with outstanding bravery that got him noticed during his performance in the Mexican War. His calmness also carried into this ability to never lose composure during Civil War, even though the sight of blood made him ill, and he suffered from intense migraines. He did not have the most impressive presidency, and it could be debated how well he performed. But with this in mind, his most remarkable achievement was being a hero at Appomattox. In Richmond, Virginia, the Union's army achievements forced the Confederates to surrender in 1865. Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, sent over a white flag to notify the Union Army of their victory. These two men had opposed each other for so long. The terms of surrender decided in the small home given up for government purposes was a bittersweet moment in American history. Grant had every right to hate Lee. He had fought against him and had given so many of his soldiers' lives in the process of war. However, instead of handing it to him with a series of harsh and cruel punishments and all his soldiers, the terms were very few and very forgiving. They agreed to send food rations to the starving Confederate army, as well as make them give up their weapons, standard protocol. But he did let them keep horses used during battle. Along with this, Grant also commanded soldiers to refrain from boasting in any form of showmanship. He knew that at the end of the day, this was America, not the Union Army versus Confederates. He knew that he needed to keep the country together, and he also knew that he had immense respect for Lee. From his whole lifetime, he had admired him. Although he did not agree with his reasons for fighting, he still fought and upheld a strong character. Grant remembered that day as a sad one he did not like to be part of. He did not stand in front of a man he held great regard to and serve him punishment when he knew he had suffered a great deal already. The bond between men, even with difference in standards, is the respect that makes America great. Another character who exemplifies respect in every way is Rosa Parks. She was born the year of 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama. She came from a humble life where her father was a carpenter and her mother a teacher. When she was just 11, she enrolled in the Montgomery Industrial School for Girls. This was a private school focused on the liberal-minded woman. Her time at the school was a definite reflection on her actions to come later in life. This private academy focused on the importance of self-worth, similar to her mother's words, take advantage of the opportunities no matter how few they were. No one could exemplify a piece of advice such as one might as she would. No matter how good her education was, there was no denying the intense environment of fear and racism that she grew up in. The climate was unavoidable following the slavery era, Civil War, Reconstruction attempts, and the constant struggle thereafter to introduce African Americans back into society that they were prohibited from for so long. She is quoted as follows: "We didn't have any civil rights. It was just a matter of survival, of existing from one day to the next. I remember going to sleep as a girl, hearing the Klan ride at night, and hearing of lynching and being afraid that the house would burn down." She, like every African American in that point of American history, was no stranger to injustice. There was no time to stand up for their rights when they risked death around every corner. That is, until a young man by the name of Emmett Till was the tipping point to start a powerful movement. Emmett Till was a young boy about 15 years old when he was brutally murdered in a most devastating way. His murderer was a store owner down south that heard from his wife that Emmett had whistled at her when he left the store, an innocent act that proved to be so fatal. That was enough for him to be beaten, executed, and mutilated. This tragedy had no happy ending. The murderers got away cleanly and without remorse of even a smidge of guilt. As the world watched, African Americans decided to take no more. The civil rights movement thus began, and its effects spread quickly. African Americans willing to take the enormous risk of fighting for their rights finally felt the support to do so. Among these brave souls was, indeed, Rosa Parks. After a long day at her job as a seamstress, she was tired and weary and boarded a bus and took a seat in the front section. Due to Montgomery's segregation laws on public transportation, she was required to have taken a seat in the back, as the front was reserved for whites. When a white man came onto the bus next, he singled her out and asked for her seat, disregarding the numerous available seats around them. She stood her ground, and she told him she would not move. She was then arrested, but her act was not in vain. The Montgomery Improvement Association was formed and called on all African Americans in their city to stop taking the bus. The boycott lasted 382 days and led to a Supreme Court ruling that Montgomery's segregation law was in fact unconstitutional. Rosa Parks is no better example of respect. She witnessed a young man's murder broadcasted throughout the country and decided to risk her own well-being for the sake of his memory. She could have sat back and waited for someone else to take the extreme leap of faith into a cold world, but she decided to do it herself. She is quoted near the end of her life saying, "I do the very best I can to look upon life with optimism and hope and looking forward to a better day. But I don't think there is still a lot of clan activity and racism. I think when you say you're happy, you have everything you need and everything you want and nothing more to reach for. I haven't reached that stage yet." Even in her final days, she still spoke words of hope and wisdom to the future generations to carry out the necessary work towards ending this great battle of equality, with no better motivation than to make sure that those who fought before did not die in vain. The next and final example of respect embedded in the daily life of America comes from the character Jim Burden in Willa Cather's novel My Antonia. Jim Burden lost his parents, moved out west, and began his life with his grandparents on the American frontier, also known as the Wild West. In the time period which he moved out west, it was the time where America was expanding and immigrants were pouring in, all people alike moving towards the common goal of a better life. Jim Burden moved in next door to a bohemian family in the novel called the Shimerdas. Part of the Shimerda family was their daughter Antonia. Although their ages differed by a couple of years, they were still able to gain a strong and undeniable connection. Jim taught Antonia English, and after their lessons they would frolic about the open land and make memories that they both would cherish forever. Jim exudes respect because he was a part of a time in American history where respect was abundant. Immigrants and Eastern settlers alike flocked out west to reach towards their dreams. They were connected by this and therefore gave a lending hand to their neighbors, enjoyed laughter and good times, and treated each other as they would have wanted to be treated themselves. The beauty of the American goal was present in all people out west as they, especially Jim Burden, recognized the similarity and equality between themselves and each other and acted upon this observation with equal treatment and a presence of dignity. It is true that oftentimes people do look down upon America. They use it as a target to bundle up all their dissatisfaction for the way things are in the world. However, what they don't realize is how truly special it is to be an American. There are so many variations of Americans. No one person could define each and every one. But to consider yourself as a part of this nation is to consider yourself as upholding certain standards and values. One of those values is most importantly respect. No matter who you are, what your orientation may be, what you do in life, respect is still very achievable. It can be given and received and knows no bounds as to whom it applies to. The beauty of respect is that it is simple. To offer your regard and to consider yourself as an equal to another is not a difficult task. When we all realize that we are all the same, but we're simply dealt different cards, that is to me what makes America great.